Okay. Hi, everyone. This is the work group K8s Infra team meeting on April 3rd. Welcome, everyone. Be nice to each other. Okay. So where do we start today? I'm going to open up the document. April 3rd, looks like Hippie, you've added some notes and things like that. Do you want to run the meeting, Hippie?
I type fast, so I tend to focus on the notes. But I can, if I do that, then somebody else has to step up and take notes.
Is there any other volunteers who want to run the meeting? Okay. Let's do this, Hippie. I will take notes.
Okay. Welcome to the April 4th, depending on where you are, meeting of the Kubernetes K8s Infra working group. This meeting is publicly recorded on YouTube, and we can hear to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which basically, as Dim said, is let's treat each other nice. Last week we went through and had some action items. I went ahead and added those for review. But first, are there any new people who haven't been to the meeting before or would like to say hi? I think I recognize everybody. Yeah. So first action items to review are billing and granularity, and we've got some updates from Justin, Thucken, and Dims, hopefully around some various things. One thing we talked about is doing a quick billing update at the beginning of the call, but I do not see our friend from the CNC at Ehor on. Does anybody have that separately from you?
Sorry, who's giving the
update? On the billing and granularity, it was usually Ehor, but he's not here. So I'm going to jump.
Okay, I can try to pull something up real quick. Hold on.
This is billing granularity. This is like the reporting stuff, I think. I have made no progress on my side, I'm afraid, in the past 2 weeks.
And secondarily, I've reached out for another team that's trying to get information dealing with the big table billing for Helm, and I've not made any progress there either. While Tim's looking up the possible temporary billing, I'll jump down to DIMS. For documenting the requirement for spending CNCF money on SIGs, there was a request, basically what's the criteria, are the artifacts being consumed? And DIMS had said he would look into this.
I haven't done this yet.
Okay, no stress.
Yeah, it should be like a paragraph on it. I'll try to do this week.
No stress. Image promoter, I've seen a lot of traffic here and there on various PRs. I know I just saw something from ListX this morning that I did a little bit of a review on. So I'll kind of probably hand this stuff over to ListX. Linus, if he's here. Yeah, he's here.
Hey. Well, I didn't realize that we get to this topic this soon, but let me just collect my thoughts for the.
If you want, I can do the billing quick readout. If you want another minute or two, Linus.
Sure.
All right. So just pulling up the billing report for the last 30 days. This is not specifically the last 2 weeks. It's the last 30 days. Grouping by project. What we see is DNS has cost us about $40, $38.29 in particular, and the compute engine has cost us $327, which I presume again is Justin's test clusters. Clusters plural, and hopefully those will be online for real soon, and this will be a permanent charge. So
we are using
them for real, although I'm not sure we have checked in all of the stuff that actually reifies them. And that's it. Everything else is zero.
$40 on DNS is impressive.
in 30 days?
I'm typing it at the bottom.
Oh, sorry. I backed into note-taking mode.
You're supposed to run the meeting, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's reflexive. I just fingers go to the keyboard. Thank you for that update.
Sorry, Justin comments that he thinks $40 on DNS is a lot. We've served 93,781,114 DNS queries in the last 30 days.
Okay.
Hoorah.
Okay, one more update here is we've been running some Kubernetes bots, the publishing bots, some extra copies of them because we were trying to do the co-mod thing. So that might be a temporary bump as well for the computing cost.
Yes, I can shut down the old cluster, and we should just have the new cluster, and it should all work. I will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll stop typing. So we're going to get the old cluster shut down. Thanks for that. It's
All right,
exciting.
I think Linus, you're up.
Linus is ready to go.
Sure. So the file stuff has been merged, the PRO configuration to get basically the untrusted main PRO instance to look at Kubernetes /K8s IO, that repo, the manifests there, and I've already started testing this yesterday. I'll probably finish this later today, assuming there are no additional issues, but basically it's we just need to make sure that the pre-submit check is required, because right now even if it fails, it'll still be okay, it's all right, you can still merge this PR. We don't want that to happen. That would be really bad. So I've been talking with Ben the Elder about this, and apparently it's supposed to be all checks in PRO are supposed, or all PRO jobs are supposed to be required by default, but for some reason it isn't yet, because there are some details about some bot that apparently runs periodically to make sure that some jobs are required and it sets this flag, but it hasn't run yet or something. So I'm still waiting on that. But I would say we're 99% there for sure. I've been saying this for a while, but we are really there. The main remaining items are the testing GCRs for setting up an E2E test framework. Tim Hawken, you mentioned this before. I just saw your comments on a PR yesterday and replied back. But basically, test GCRs for testing only, and I guess the E2E framework itself, that would be really nice. I already have an issue open for that. I can link it in the doc after. But I would think that's about it. I mean, after this initial demo for K8s IO starts working, it's just a matter of copy pasting PRO jobs, configs.
Okay.
So yeah.
Can I ask something here? Justin, you did the cluster API images last week, right? So do you want to try that?
I did them by hand, but sorry, will you?
Do you want to try that same thing with Linus?
Sure. Yes, there are also other.
I don't know who else is ready right now, and we can push the same SHA that we had before.
Well, hold on. Let's be clear. You pushed new cluster API images to the cluster API staging, or to the new prod, or to the old prod?
To their old prod.
Okay. So, Linus, once you're confident that the promoter is happy and running against the new staging and new prod, then we can do some real live testing instead of phony bogus testing. And then if we're confident in that, then I think, I don't mean to be a harp, but we make sure that we're happy with the testing on it so that new container promoters don't destroy the universe. And then we start the bulk process of moving all the images over from the old prod to the new prod. right? That's the part that I haven't even really started to design, but apparently there's some mechanism to do backside GCR copies, so we can do that hopefully relatively painlessly. But even if not, it's just going to take time. It's not a hard program; it's just slow, right? So we're looking at you, Linus. When you tell us that you're relatively happy with it, then we push the button. In the meantime, anybody object to me creating a staging and prod just for promoter testing?
Clusters, you mean?
No, GCRs.
Oh.
Using the same script that we have before. Actually, I'll have to mutate the script because the prod script sort of assumes a single name. And so I'll mutate that script a little bit to create the promoter prod and the real prod. And we'll need a Google group that governs access to those. Any objections to that? All right, Linus, we can set that up either later today or later this week.
Cool. Oh, one more update. I just saw in my email Bart Smikla from VMware. He added a PR for the promoter to basically make a snapshot of existing GCRs, just so that we can, once we do like the bulk migration thing, we can just take a snapshot of the existing old prod and then just create a manifest out of that, instead of doing it by hand, which would be very painful.
Oh, and then actually run the promoter against the thousands of images, or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, stress test, trial by fire.
Is that a migration?
So, guys, actually, what it is doing, it's just checking the images inside and taking, combining them together if there is multiple like destination repositories, and then generating one manifest file or dumping it to the standard output. So
yeah. That's like really required here for this to work. So yeah, thank you for that PR. I will look at it later today.
So one of the things that we'll have to address through this process is there a staging for every single repo, or do we grandfather in all the things that are currently in the existing prod that don't have a staging repo anywhere?
So yeah, I mean, that's an open question. I mean, I didn't think of this, but that's an organizational thing independent of the promoter itself, I would say.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
Oh,
the promoter assumes that every image got promoted from somewhere, right? And Linus, I don't know if you've implemented the part yet that's going to delete the images that were not supposed to be there. But all of the stuff that's currently in our GCR that's being used for the world isn't in any staging repo. And so the question is, do we make a phony grandfathered staging repo where we upload all those to the phony grandfathered staging and then let the promoter promote from there? Or do we try to create staging repos that are legitimately for each of those topics? Oh my God. Or do we just upload them into the new prod and say, well, these are grandfathered in?
I would say new prod and grandfathered in, just to keep it simple.
And so we'll just need a manifest somewhere that covers them, right, Linus?
Yeah.
Right. If it's in the initial manifest, then we don't delete them, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we'll just have to make a manifest that has no source repo and is simply there to make sure that the accounting is right. Think about that one.
Yeah, I think that will just require a small tweak. Just add another flag to the promoter. Yeah.
Okay. We'll trial that when we get there. We're getting close. This feels really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
So for anybody who doesn't work at Google, next week is GCP Next, which is our big thing. So like, I don't know about you, Linus, but I'm going to have almost no time between now and our next meeting because I will be out for almost the entirety of next week. And then the week after that, I'll be paying off that. So I'm reluctant to commit to anything in the 2-week time frame. But I will keep doing my best to push this forward and reviewing whatever PRs Linus sends me.
Thank you.
Yeah, at least if you can shoot for the initial kicking the tires with the cluster API and doing the manifest. I don't think we need you for that, Tim. But when you get back, then we can go from there.
Excellent. It's good to see the image promoter forward. It's sad to miss everybody going to the GCP thing. Maybe I can attend sometime. After our image promoter, we have some Artifactory updates from Justin around an MVP. Did you see us back in?
I have also done absolutely nothing on this. I'm sorry.
I've actually, one of the things I'd like to check in with you, Justin, I've got some other projects where I need some 302 redirector services. I might just have a quick chat to see what you're doing there. For the Federation.
Where we're starting is with not doing redirection and with just having a bucket for binary artifacts. We have what's the use case you have?
So we have a CI system for apsnoop.cncf.ci, and I've got all of those doing HTTPS on the correct URL, but I wanted to set up something for apsnoop.cncf.io, which is the main site, and I wanted to transparently redirect it to or 302 redirected to the right CI instance for on apsnoop.cncf.ci.
So that's an easy. I mean, that's a straight redirect. We could have Nginx. I think we actually have an Nginx redirector, right?
We do. If it's just a URL redirection, you can send it as a PR against the Nginx config in the case.io subdirectory. If you want a Go link, sorry, I was looking at something, trying to figure out why my computer's taking off while we chat. Sorry, did you want a Go link or a top level case.io URL? Domain name, rather.
I might try it with the top level case.io because API Snoop is specific to case.io, and right now the URLs have been under cncf.io and cncf.ci. And so adding a apsnoop.case.io would probably be nice.
If we're confident that we're keeping this and this is a real thing, then I don't object to that. We should think about whether we want the name to reflect the implementation or the intention, but that's we can discuss that in the PR. So yeah, you can just send a PR against the Nginx config. That's really easy.
Awesome. I'll do that.
Okay.
We'll move on from there. Thanks for those updates, Justin. I know that you'll probably also be super busy the next couple of weeks. You won't expect anything there. There was a lot of conversation around Netlify, and there was just a need to document how to set up DNS for K8s. .io. I think the documentation is there. And we were going, I don't think we had somebody take this up. We were going to volunteer SigDocs to create a sub-project for Netlify so that we could kind of hand over the Netlify portion to SigDocs and make sure that we just documented how to do DNS within the case.io repo. Was there an offline discussion for issue template creating? And those are the Netlify topics. Anybody wants to speak to those, feel free to.
Who was talking about this last time, Hippie? Do you know?
Unfortunately,
was it Ben Elder?
Yeah, I think Ben was involved. At least for the talking about the documentation. I forgot who. Yeah, it was him because I remember the voluntold portion. Fun words. We'll table that for now if anybody has something. Awesome. With our CNCF cluster actions, we were going to make sure that we could burn down and create our clusters using automation, including bringing up our cert manager portion of the cluster.
I actually played with getting Cert Manager running, but I have not done much more than that. Or someone played with it.
So we are running Cert Manager now in the existing cluster.
Yes.
So if you need help, you can either copy that config or you can ping.
It's running in development too as well.
Okay, all right, then no problems.
I'd love for myself to maybe pair with someone while we do maybe get access to do a burn down and create cycle of a test cluster, so that we have more people with that skill set and also have it well documented. It's something I'm passionate about is pairing with people who have great skills and documenting that. So in the process of pairing, we capture that for the rest of our community. So I'm telling people to invite me to pair with them. RBAC audit and subteams. I think I didn't capture the people on this particular action item. I just recorded that there was we were going to discuss.
I don't think anyone volunteered.
Yeah, that's fair. We should probably, if that's something we want to do, I'm going to try to get better at making sure we assign someone. Also, in creating action items, do we want to create tickets? At this point, I was just doing it inside the doc. I doubt there'll be any volunteers this week or this next 2 weeks for RBAC audit. And then G Suite versus Google Groups for permissions. We had some discussions around that, and we're going to offline that.
Okay. Who's driving that conversation? Like, I don't have enough context on it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I lost track of this conversation too. Who has a pen on it?
Which specific conversation about G Suite?
Like, should we be using the K8s.io G Suite instead of the public Google groups? Because then we can nest groups, which we can't do with public groups.
So C contributor experience is driving this effort, specifically Paris. The question where we stuck is that who is the clear owner of the G Suite, because C contributor experience has a G Suite account, but it's a regular account, it's not an admin account. And some people had some questions that they would like to address to Google support of G Suite. But if you have the regular account, you are not able to do it. So it's the contributs clustering conversation at this point of time.
Okay. Do we as our group have driving motivators for this? I know there's the API access to groups and nested groups. Those are the only two that I know of. I'm not sure that it's super urgent on our side right now.
I'm not sure if it's urgent on this group side. It's urgent for community, but not specifically for this group. So some more important items have to be solved before like some actions should be done by this specific group.
Okay, so I propose that this group just lets it sit, and then we'll circle back to it when it becomes urgent, or when Paris and others say it's sort of open for business.
Correct.
Those are, if there's anything else for our action items, this is the last part for that. We can go into our open discussion. We've got a couple of things. Start off with the URL shortening service PR, and then maybe go into the auditing PR that I submitted. And but we'll say, do we want to save the promoter demo for last, or do we want to do that first to be sure we get to it?
Are you ready with the demo, Linus?
I would say, well, today, right now.
Sure, why not? Don't mean to put you on the spot. If you're not ready, that's okay. You can say no.
Yeah, I have to defer until we actually get that PR like fully tested and working for cluster API. Is it state
Okay.
cluster API or the one that I'm working on right now?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that is actually the demo itself, folks. I mean, I can add a link to the discussion, but I mean, that's like the real thing. That's actually, you can click on trial results, see the, like the SHAs and digests and all that jazz.
All right. We'll buy you another cycle actually with next week. It may or may not happen in 2 weeks time, but we'll keep an ear on the ground.
Sure.
Thanks, Linus. Who's got the URL shortening service PR? Do we want to go ahead and pull that up?
Is Mr. Ickett here? Jonathan? No. So I can talk just a little bit about it. He found this Schlink service, which seems like it does what we need, and has started putting a PR together to do it. There were some issues with the PR and how it integrates with Kubernetes and how it restarts and those sorts of things. He was working through. That was the last I heard of it a couple days ago. Okay, Friday.
Just to add, so I did the suggestion of using the DNS base because that has a set path to basically review, and then because of the new DNS infrastructure. And I will be in town in San Francisco for next week and have a meeting to discuss the pull request and if we go that route and in general what we can do on Friday. So then we can see how that goes. And I'm basically volunteering to help out on the redirector side or shortener side. And depending on what direction we go, that hopefully means that we get it done sooner. Does that make sense?
Okay. Thank you. I haven't read your thoughts on using DNS for this. I don't suspect we need to go into them here. They're in the PR, right? So I'll go catch up with them there.
So the PR is basically using I think the PHP Schlink application, which is using a database in the backend. And the different idea is instead of having a specific database, we reuse the DNS zone records, which are in Kubernetes.io in the repository, and basically use them as a key value store. And Go-based application, which basically is a stateless thing that we can run globally, depending on how much we need. And it pulls in the specific DNS text records or the values from the key value store, if you want to call it that, and redirects accordingly.
Is this a config that Schlink already has support for? Or
So
that's
a different thing. So one is text direct, and the other one is Schlink, which is basically using the database. So it's two different things. One is the one on the PR, and the other one is just a suggestion which might integrate better into the current tooling and review process.
Okay. Because the Schlink stuff seemed pretty straightforward. It was basically edit a config map and push it to the cluster, and everybody's happy. And honestly, it probably doesn't even need to be a config map. It could be the Git repo or subdirectory of the Git repo that we could watch and have it update. But Schlink itself didn't do dynamic updates, and so Jonathan was spending a bunch of time banging his head against the wall of how to make it recognize file updates and restart.
Yeah. So that's probably it. So that's we're having basically lunch in Sunnyvale on Friday. So basically wanted to see what his approach is, what the other option is, not basically jumping in and completely saying like defining anything yet, but mostly have a discussion on what works, what doesn't work with the current PR, and if we want to reiterate, and if he needs any help, I can basically provide anyway.
Awesome, thank you. That's this Friday you're going to be here?
This Friday, yeah. I'm flying tomorrow, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, make sure you stop in and say hello.
Awesome, yeah.
Okay, so who are you going to talk to on Friday?
Mr. Ickett, the guy driving the PR.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, I have no idea what his GitHub is. Is it Mr. Ickett? That's his Google email.
Yes.
Okay.
I always pronounce it Mr. Ickett, but okay.
No, maybe.
There are two Ks, so.
Also, so one we added, one reason to basically go the DNS-based route is the delegation nature. So currently, everything would go through one central repository. And with a DNS-based approach, we can basically push out to ZEP zones, which can be managed by either like a SIG or anything else. And that could be basically be a more distributed approach instead of having one repository and one maintainer team basically even do step path and something like that, which might come in handy.
I'm not sure how big.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how big that problem is. I mean, I can remember only a handful of PRs to add new Go links in the last 6 months, but I don't know. Using existing infrastructure sounds attractive if we can make it work.
Yeah, and it's a Go-based tool, so it might be more in the terms of like understanding or in the tool set of what's already being used. But as I said, the PR is already a good solution, and we will basically base anything on top of that probably and only reiterate if needed.
So if the new application needs well, the code for the Go application that you mentioned will need to live somewhere, right? So can we just assume that it lives in a separate repo somewhere, and then we'll just use the container image from there here when we are bootstrapping stuff here? Do we need to own the code also?
No, that's basically an open source project, and that would basically be similar to Sling, where we just deploy a ready Docker image and run it. And the only thing that it's needed is basically it doesn't need anything. It might need a core DNS as a caching layer or something like that, but usually not really that is even needed. And it does auto TLS and stuff like that because it's based on Caddy. So it has a lot of features that might, for more advanced things, if that might be the need, basically.
Okay. Yeah, we don't want to own code here, so that's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can totally see that.
Okay, so if you're meeting with Mr. Rickett, then everything's on the right track.
Yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like we'll get some excellent progress next week on our shortening service and conversations on that. I had dropped in some work, got to pair with Tim talking a couple of weeks ago on opening up our permissions to create a new auditors group, and with that able to start looking at our changes to the auditing configuration, so the IAM configuration, and wrote a simple script to go through and dump that to disk. And I've got some thoughts around finding ways to automatically create a PR for review, or allow anyone to create a PR to review changes in our IAM configuration. The PR is pretty straightforward, but also includes a dump of the IAM. There's a little bit of documentation on how to initially run that and submit a PR. I'll note that within that PR, there's also the buckets and the files within the buckets for Kubernetes public billing, as far as information that we can start using to generate detailed billing information. We go over an org policy and I wasn't sure, get everybody's quick feedback. We want YAML or JSON dumping. The YAML shorter, but the JSON is it's half dozen one or the other, except for where we have, there's no roles within the CNCF org. So it's an empty list, and it's kind of confusing to have a YAML file that's 0 bytes. So I was leaning toward JSON mainly for that reason. For the Kubernetes public group or project, we've got a dump there, and it's interesting to see when things were changed while Tim Document was updating things. We have a commit that includes the changes he made during that pair session to the IAM policy. And I'd suspect that as we move forward, whatever is polling, because we'll have to do polling right now, would automatically create that for review. And maybe some way, if there's a way that we can audit who made those changes and assign that change PR to the person who made the changes with 2 external auditors, would be great. Some other additions I've thought of where instead of polling with a cron job or something in Prow, monitoring those changes so it triggers a review of the policy change. So that's just up for discussion, and appreciate any feedback on this approach and where we can go from here. There are more policy things to audit. I believe I put them at the end of the audit script around dumping the IAM for each GCS bucket and the IAM for BigQuery, and iterating over and as far as getting every possible thing that could be built, querying for the enabled APIs for the Kubernetes public project or any projects we had after that, and within those APIs, identifying each resource that's available and dumping their IAM. Thanks, Tim, Falcon, for pairing with me on that, and I really enjoyed that, and I hope this is useful for the rest of the community.
So I started looking at the PR. It looks good. It's unfortunate that it has to be reactionary, that it's not the authoritative source for configuration. We could, in the future, move towards it being the authoritative source and syncing in the other direction. I'm a little nervous about it right now because there's so many different things to look at, like you said.
Why did you say it had to be?
It doesn't have to be. For now, it is. Right. But even having it be reactionary is still pretty cool when we can have a tool that automatically says, "Hey, Justin just got access to something."
Everything.
Yeah, Justin just got a project owner, and the fact that it's polling based is unfortunate, but that is what it is. But once we have the cluster up, if we run this even like hourly as a cron job or something, and have it send out an alert whenever that changes and require some human to come through and acknowledge that to clear the alert, that's pretty amazing. So really cool stuff. I will try to look at that PR in its totality today.
Thanks, Tim. While we've got a lot of Googlers on here that are familiar intimately with GCP, is there anything in auditing where we could have something fed via string for those to enable our almost alert based when there's a change made, atomically creating that PR and assigning it, finding who made that change so that that's public, so that if it's a bot, fine, it's a bot. If it's a person, assigning it to a person so the conversations can be transparent.
So as far as I know, you might think we all are experts in GCP. That's not necessarily the case. As far as I know, there isn't a sort of watch-based mechanism for this. So it'll have to be polling-based. And there is an audit log. I'm not sure what the API for accessing the audit log is. I've never tried to do it through the API. I've only ever done it through the UI. But it is there, which is something we can look at and figure out if we can link audit logs back to IAM deltas. I'll have to think about that or do some digging into it to see if there's an API for it.
Separately from the watch, it might be interesting to know who made those changes. So in that audit log for the API, the authentication, who was authorized to do that would be really interesting as far as auto creating that PR when we do poll.
That's what should show up in the audit log, though, right? The audit log should say, HH at whatever co-op whatever, I can't remember your email. HH added IAM rule, whatever.
Yep.
And that should be in the audit log. The only question I really have is, can I get that automatically? You should be able to see the audit log. Can you not, like if you go to one of the console for the UI, can you not see the audit log?
Let me check real quick.
And if not, we should figure out what permission we need to add to the auditors group to make sure that they can. Justin's got
I'll
the
do that
API.
offline, so we don't take up more time in the meeting on that. Really appreciate.
Okay. Yeah, please try to get into the console, like using your auditor's role. Get into the console, try to look at the audit log, or whatever G-Cloud commands are available, or API commands. There are some API, Justin's got it up here, so there are some API. And
this is through Stackdriver, is that right? Yeah,
we may have to figure out a more extended permissions model to grant to the auditors group to make sure that it's got access, but I think that it should have access, so we should figure that out.
I can't load any logs under the stack driving logger.
Yeah. Yes, that's not surprising. I think they have a slightly different permission system that I'll need to go figure out.
Okay.
I've never tried to delegate within there.
I think they do a log sync to PubSub, perhaps. Feels a little bit like coding would be good enough.
We'll see if we can take a look at this end. Hippie, if you can't figure out the right permission, or if you do me a favor, look at it, see if you can figure out what the right permissions we need to add are. If you can't figure it out, then we can pair up again and try to dig and find it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Let's see. I believe we're getting.
Is anybody else excited by the work that we're doing here? Like, actually, this is pretty cool that we're accumulating all this neat stuff of like how to run an organization in a very transparent way on top of Google Cloud and like codifying it into code.
And Kubernetes, we're actually running Kubernetes.
I think it's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of little BS that we need to figure out, but once we figure it out and we write it down, I think it's a pretty cool roadmap for anybody else who wants to follow.
Pioneering this and co-authoring it with all of you is one of the reasons I get up at 4 o'clock. So I'm pretty excited. Well, I think we've gone through our agenda, and if we want, I think we have about 15 minutes. We can go back to everyone, or if there's anything that anyone wants to add on the end, this is your moment.
I wanted to just ask people on the call, say, for example, Tim Pepper, if they wanted to bring up something that they're seeing in the SIG release or somewhere else where they could use our help.
No, nothing inherent in terms of what's going on. Just trying to track where y'all are headed with the infra so that as we improve things from the SIG release side, that we can just do it on this new setup. And I think there's a couple things where I've struggled maybe to get info on how it's done because it's been a Google internal process. And that is what it is, but as we aim to do something better and transparent, rather than trying to understand what was done in its entirety and its details that were Google specific, I just would rather focus on the forward path here.
Right.
But yeah, there's nothing specific there at this point.
So the GCS repository for the Ubuntu or Yum stuff, is that getting any? I mean, do we need to do something there? Do you still? I remember in 1.14 you were able to upload the Debian packages before the announcements went out, right? So was that just because?
That was just better planning, yeah, understanding that there's more time lag than we'd had previously and starting to line things up earlier, sooner.
Okay, so that's not because somebody got extra,
Nope.
No, okay. So do we want to do something there better for 1.15?
I don't know that. So I guess I had sort of two paths in my head. One that maybe we would improve on this existing Google specific stuff and be able to somehow pull people in to have more hands on deck versus build something that's open and transparent, community driven on the new infrastructure. And I think at this point, I'm not trying to like tilt at the windmill of opening up this Google specific thing. versus just let it be how it is. And for 114, we did better. We understand some of the lags and manage that better. So I think that path is what it is, and we'll eventually just stop doing that and be doing instead the open way once we can prove that they're equivalent.
Right. There is no urgency, but then we have to like light the fire somehow, somewhere.
Yeah.
To make it happen, right? Otherwise, it's just going to continue the way it is.
Well, yeah, I think we have, I wouldn't call it a fire, but we've got a simmer, and we're talking about trying to get the other stuff rolling through the 115 cycle. So I guess from my perspective, it depends on all these other things that are being stood up. The packaging feels like a relatively minor one to move at the point that these other things are working out. And I don't want to complicate, like today's agenda, there's like a huge span of different service topics, right? So this is really just a fairly flat set of directories that have content copied into them. So it'll be a pretty easy thing to serve, I think, once we're ready to do that.
Right. Again, the promoter is something that might be helpful there also, not just images, but files as well. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and there I think there's also one of the things that slowed things down a bit. We had a realization that the way we're running the repos today actually causes some, well, running the repos and managing the package specification contents there, dependency requirements, strings, we actually have broken some use cases, and what the right thing to do is we're still hashing back and forth.
Right.
So there's hosting content, and then there's what is good content, and we've really circled back around to, wait a second, what is good content to host?
Sounds good, Tim. Thank you. Anybody else? James, SIG testing, was there something that was becoming more urgent?
No, nothing.
No.
Okay. No, just
anybody else wants to chime in? Javier? Ihor?
No, not really.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I had. Okay, so wrap up the meeting, HH?
I think so. I think we're good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from now. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.